Hello and welcome to the Yale Youth Hockey Association program orientation for the 2015-16 season. In this presentation, we outline the initiatives that we look to implement in the upcoming year, as well as to highlight our coaches and look at the structure and curriculum for the teams at all of our levels. More than anything, our goal is to create a community-based organization where all of our players and member families can foster lifelong friendships with each other. From a hockey-specific standpoint, our goal is to create a culture where each member of the team is valued, our practices and games are organized, our players are challenged physically, socially, and emotionally to reach their potential as hockey players, but far more importantly as people. As part of that process, we look to fully implement USA Hockey's American Development Model in 2015-16. Obviously, we've been going in this way, going in this direction for several years now, with a heavy emphasis on skill development and age-appropriate coaching and progression. However, we're going to jump in this year with 2 feet and really follow through from might all the way through our program. And in line with USA Hockey's focus on long-term athlete development, it's important to realize what Yale Youth Hockey believes, that this player development process is a marathon, not a sprint. It doesn't happen overnight. There's no quick fixes. It's a long, elaborate process that needs a step-by-step approach. This picture here on the left really is kind of the crux of what the ADM is all about. So this is the windows of trainability, which are outlined by USA Hockey. So on the top, you obviously have females. On the bottom, you have the males. And then you can see there in the middle, it's the chronological age from under 5 to 20 and above. And what that line simulates is, or what the line really indicates, is the rate of growth for the average athlete or average person really at that age group. So just looking at the male window, there's a slower rate of growth. It goes from the time you're 5 or 6, your rate of growth dips down until you get to that puberty, and then there's a spike in the rate of growth, which obviously indicates your growth spurt. And that PHV point at the top, which for males is about 14, 15, and for girls is somewhere in that 11 to 13 range. That's the height, basically the height of puberty. That's the fastest you'll grow, your biggest growth spurt. So just looking at these windows on the male side, the windows of the boxes or whatever you want to call them. So you look at the suppleness window, which is the first one. So from 5, 6 to about 9 or 10, that suppleness window, which is the baseline for athleticism. It's basic athleticism, flexibility, coordination, all that good stuff. Just manipulating the body to get some basic athletic movements. And speed 1 also comes there in the middle of that 7 to 9 range. Now, perhaps what in my belief is the most important window of trainability is the skill acquisition window. So you'll see there for the girls, that's from about 8 to 11, and for the boys, it's from 9 to 12. So for the boys, that perfectly syncs in with the squirt and pee-wee years. So from 9 to 12, which is your time in squirt, that's the golden age of skill development. So in that window is the time where you really have to hone your fundamental skills from skating, passing, puck handling, shooting perspective, really set the foundation and get a lot of repetition to master those skills. Because if you miss that window, the farther away from that window you get, the more difficult it is to correct deficiencies in that skill area, which is why you'll see we have such a heavy skill focus in the squirt and pee-wee window. Another interesting window of trainability to check out there is the stamina window. So that happens 13 to about 16, and that's where players can really become conditioned. So we hear these terms strength and conditioning. Well, the conditioning component starting at about 13, and obviously the strength part, follows from there. But very important, so often we hear parents talking about the conditioning and practice and our squirts and our pee-wees and our mites, and we're not doing enough, board-to-board sprints and things like that we all used to do as kids. But the reality is that this slide here is based on sports science and the physiological aspects of a child. So it would be a fruitless exercise to bag skate players in might and squirt, as it really has no value. So as we look through this process, you can kind of you refer back to this slide and see why it is that we do what we do. And then again, talking about that strength and conditioning period starting and ultimately what's Bantam and above. Um, our belief is at the mite level, let's build the foundation and through the squirt level and cultivate a love for the game. So when they get to that kind of stamina, strength, speed 2 window, when they have to put in time away from the rink to really become an elite player, that they have the love of the game that drives them and motivates them to do that. So again, that's all part of our process, all very important, and we're glad that this slide here is able to kind of explain how this process works. Also on this slide over there to the right-hand side, there's videos, 4 links to videos. They're about 5 minutes long, and you can go to the one that's kind of corresponding to your child, or also you can go and check out all 4. They're about 5 minutes long, like I said, and they just outline kind of the progression of the ADM from 8 and under through 14 and under. Again, this slide is really in direct correlation with the last slide, but it just brings it together in a different way. So from birth to 6, you have that active start, fundamental movement skills. It's not necessarily athletic or hockey skills. It's just fundamental movement skills. So again, building baseline athleticism, building suppleness, building flexibility, all that stuff is important, and it's an activity-based time from 0 to 6. So the most important thing is just to be doing something, be active, be engaged, and make sure you're having fun. Again, the fun continues into the 6 and under mites. 8 and under mite level. Here on the right, you can see developing the ABCs. If you go to admkids.com, it's a wonderful resource of information that has a lot of stuff on there. But also, you can check out what USA Hockey calls the ABCs in their entirety, and it's all listed on the website. So again, 6 and under, 8 and under mite, making sure we're having fun, making sure kids are active, kids are engaged, kids are learning as we're building from a step-by-step approach. And now we're laying the groundwork. So we're laying the groundwork for the fundamentals, establishing the basics, starting to show them some things from a technical perspective that'll set them up and build the framework to build an elite player. As we segue into learning to train stage, which also we can refer to as that golden age of skill development, that's where we're learning the fundamental skills specific to the sport. It's very important, as I say, specific to the sport. It's very important at all these levels that players are playing multiple sports and building their athleticism across a wide spectrum. But again, in the learning to train stage, the golden age of skill development, that's where we hammer our skills. We're working on our puck handling, we're working on our skating, and we can make corrections in our technique of the players, and then we can, with repetition, reinforce the new behaviors. But again, if we miss that window of the golden age of skill development, the longer we get away from it, the more difficult it is to fix that and to continue to move forward. Looking there at the 4th stage of long-term athlete development, as outlined by USA Hockey, is the 14 and under Bantam, 16 and under midget level. That's that training to train stage. That's when that stamina component starts to come in. But as you look here on the right, you're building the engine. So again, that's the stamina component, consolidating the sport skills. So now as we've gone through this process, we've really hammered our skills, from that 10 to 12 thing, 10 to 12, under 10 and under 12, so from 9 to 12 in that golden age of skill development window. We've introduced some hockey, kind of hockey concepts to cultivate hockey intelligence, starting, setting the baseline in mites, a little more in squirt, a steady progression through Pee Wee, and now we got to consolidate all these skills, all this information at the 14 and under training to train stage, and just start to really become, what would become an elite athlete. Looking at the 5th and 6th boxes here in the stages of long-term athlete development, you see this word compete, and I think it's important that we differentiate as parents and as coaches between hard work and compete. I think it's very important that you can start to instill this in the active start level, the fundamentals level, about the importance of hard work. Hard work is a life skill. It's something that's not specific to hockey. It's an opportunity for us at the baseline to ingrain in them the importance of hard work. That being said, so many people get frustrated when their kid doesn't play hard in the game and he doesn't stop moving, or he's gliding a little bit here to here. As you can see, from a sports science and child psychology perspective, you can't learn to compete and train to compete until you're about 17 to 20 years old. So this idea of mites and squirts that don't compete It's not that big of a deal. It's part of a long-term athlete development process. Looking at the next one, training to win. Basically, obviously we want to win. We want to be successful. Every one of us is a competitive person. That being said, our focus needs to be on player development, and winning can be a byproduct of that. But as we go through these stages of long-term athlete development, particularly in our youth hockey area, winning should never be the motivation for anything from a coaching and parents' perspective. So training to win, you look there, it says junior, NCAA, NHL. If your coach is fully, his entire salary, his entire livelihood is based on the level that he's coaching, and he gets hired and fired on wins and losses, which is at all those levels, then you worry about training to win. In the meantime, going through youth hockey and into high school and all that good stuff, obviously the kids want to win. Everybody wants to win, but winning can't be the only driver. It's got to be a developmental process with winning as a byproduct. And then finally, hockey for life. We want to cultivate a situation where all of our players, male and female, love the game, as I said previously, and want to be involved as a player, coach, administrator, volunteer, fan, whatever, and be involved in this great game for their life in its entirety. Just another way now that this one here, the skill progression pyramid, kind of brings together the step-by-step approach of skill development and also of learning how to process the game, cultivating, developing hockey IQ. So where this thing is supposed to start, and oftentimes it starts in a lot of places in a lot of different areas, but we start this from the bottom right-hand corner. And you'll look there in the top right-hand corner, there's a lot of crossover. So this accounts for players at the higher end of the spectrum in a given birth class or in a given age group, where some of the skills and some of the tactics have crossover, have some crossover. So you look at the baseline there in that orange in the corner. That's where, Mite House, clinic, mites in the beginning, technical skills. That's almost your entire focus. Now, obviously, there's some mites there at the higher end of the spectrum, and you'll see some mites that trickle into the green, and then obviously some squirts that go in green and yellow, and some peewees from yellow and blue, and so on and so forth. But if you look at the progression, all of these groups, USA Hockey, suggests that at the 18 and under midget level, 16 and under midget level, 14 and under bantam level, that 50% of practice time be focused on skill development. So that's all technical skills, individual tactics. What's happening, or what's happened here over the years in our youth hockey, is that we have such a focus and an obsession with winning and an obsession with this, and this, and all these irrelevant things that, in a squirt practice, a lot of teams spend most of their time on strategy, team tactics, team play, and systems at the squirt level. And that's because the focus is so important on winning. But if you start in that bottom right-hand corner and progress up and to the left, you'll see a step-by-step approach that accounts for players at all levels and players at the higher end of the spectrum as well. You can even look there, a great example of at the Pee-wee level, for that super elite player at the high end of the Pee-wee spectrum, they're in the top of that pyramid, which is strategy. That's when they have really honed their technical skills, their individual tactics. Team tactics are concepts. They've learned the basic idea of how one player works with the other four. Then they've learned, some system stuff by the coach instilling that in them. But again, it all comes back to technical skills, individual tactics. The more we can practice and improve upon that, the better off the players will be. A look here at our 2015-2016 initiatives. Our goal, first and foremost, is to provide a long-term development path to hockey excellence. Now, as far as we're concerned, we have three types of players that we have to take care of. At the base, we have our recreational player. That's a player who's in here, enjoys hockey. He or she just loves to play, wants to play their games on the weekends, wants to go to practice, and then when that's over, wants to go and do other things. And those are really important players. Those are people that are going to be involved in hockey for life just by virtue of loving the sport. And then we have our player at the higher end of that spectrum. I hesitate to call them elite players because the reality is at the mite, squirt, peewee level, what really is, an elite player. and these terms get thrown around. But players on the higher end of the spectrum, we got to make sure that we have the coaching, the resources, and all the necessary stuff to challenge them, to continue to keep them at the higher end of the spectrum, and to move them through a step-by-step approach of long-term athlete development. And then our third player is probably the widest percentage of our player, and those are the players that are in between on a various range, in between our players at the higher end of the spectrum and our recreational players. So these are players that are serious about their game. Maybe the difference between them and a player at the higher end of the spectrum is maybe the process at which they're going through, that they're growing, going through puberty. Maybe they started hockey late. It could be a multitude of factors. But what we do to mitigate that is make sure as you go down to maybe the fifth or sixth or seventh, whatever bullet down here, our head coaches, which we implemented last year throughout our program, are all non-parent, stipend-based coaches that we've selected that really meet the strict criteria that we're looking for. So what we do is provide them with the adequate coaching and then the resources and the skills to, if they want to work hard and really take the next step, they'll have the resources to move into that higher spectrum, and they can continue to progress and develop all the way through. So we're looking after, every player falls into one of those three categories, and we want to make sure that we're developing every single player that comes to our program, goes through our process. As you may or may not have realized, Yale Youth Hockey has applied to be a USA Hockey ADM Model Association. Now, we don't know if we're going to get that certification or that distinction, but whether we do or not, we're going to fully implement the ADM across the board in 2015-16. So in order to be compliant with that, there's some changes that we have to make, some smaller roster sizes. This was a recommendation from Roger Grillo when he came in last year and talked about 12-minute periods and the challenge of having 3 lines, with 12-minute periods. So at the 10U squirt level, which we'll get into a little later, we've shrunk the roster sizes and basically made 4 teams out of 3. Very important, strict compliance with practice-to-game ratios outlined by USA Hockey. We probably, across the state and across the country, it's kind of an epidemic where there's too many games and too few practices. So we're going to try to tweak that. An assignment of a skating coach. Sean Hanna has obviously been working with our players for quite some time here. He does a tremendous job from a skating perspective and really and all that he does. And we've plugged in Mike Henrici as our puck skills coach. He'll work at all levels in addition to coaching the Squirt A1 team, and he'll have some other involvement, some other responsibilities with some of our teams in the higher end of the spectrum. Looking to bring a little sanity back to youth hockey, youth sports. The ADM and USA Hockey requires no Thanksgiving weekend hockey and no Christmas week hockey. So obviously, regardless of religious denomination, that week after that Christmas holiday, we're going to take off. And again, this is a blackout period in hockey. Take time, spend time with your families. Get away from the rink. Maybe you have another child, son or daughter, who has a bunch of other activities, and they're always coming to support their sibling at hockey, and now we can turn the tables. Maybe we can have a family vacation, but just anything but hockey. We turn off the switch there, focus on some other things. This is a long process going through one season, and it's a little bit of a rat race. And so just to try to bring some sanity back, feel free to take that time and be with your families. Also, just taking that concept one step further, as far as missing games and whatnot, we encourage players at every level to take part in other sports. I think the evidence is overwhelming that if players specialize early, they peak early. So, if a player's got a conflict in the fall, he's got a soccer game, he's got a hockey game, go to your soccer game. You're not going to catch any flack from us. That's part of the process. That's part of the long-term athlete development process and something that we really think is important. Off-ice training for Mike through Bantam. So obviously, at the Bantam level, it'll be a little more stringent, a little more focused. But USA Hockey provides coaches with dry land training cards all the way through, which have some exercises to run the kids through a couple times a week. So right through Mike through Bantam, we'll hand those out to the coaches, and you can expect some off-ice training, some dry land work that's age-appropriate and a steady progression throughout our program. We have a few new teams that we're plugging in this year. U19 girls hybrid split season, which we'll talk about later. We'll add that to our growing girls roster at the U12 and 14 levels. We're also introducing a Pee Wee AA 2003 team and a Bantam AA 2003 team. You can see that asterisk there after the Pee Wee team. At the Pee Wee AA level, Yale youth hockey returners born in 2004 are eligible to try out upon request if they want to compete for a spot on that team. You just have to send an email to Charlie, and all selections will be made on player merit. If a 2004 player or 2 or 3 of them or what have you is in that top 15 during the tryouts, they'll make the team and be treated as any other player on the Pee Wee AA team would. So we got Pee Wee AA, Bantam AA teams to serve our higher aptitude players at those level and provide them with the resources to continue to develop and continue to improve. A couple more teams that we've implemented here. We've introduced the Tier 1 midget program beginning this year with a midget minor and midget major U16, U18 teams. Those are headed up by John Melanio and Steve Novador, who consequently are also the coaches of the Pee Wee AA and Bantam AA teams, and we'll explain all that as we go through. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to continue with our stipend-based non-parent coaches at as many levels as we can provide them. Each team will get about 16, 18 home slots throughout the season, but far more importantly than that, we've increased the practice ice slots at the 8 and under mite level, 10 and under squirt level, 12 and under Pee Wee level, 14 and under Bantam level, which is something that we're certainly excited about. We are also transitioning, this is a subtle change, from 1 clinic season to 3 6-week sessions. Again, the price is the same. We've just broken it up so if people want to try hockey, for a couple months there, they can do it at a reduced cost. And then they want to take a season off or continue or whatever, that's all available to them. So we'll get some more information out about that as we get closer to the year. And then once again, we're utilizing the same rinks that we have in past, Yale University, Ingles Rink, obviously, and then Wesley and Hamden, Northford, and Blake Field. So again, a lot of stuff that we're really looking forward to, and it should be a lot of stuff to plug in and make it a great 2015-16 season. I'm certainly excited here about our roster of travel coaches for the 2015-16 season. Again, as in years past, it's really important to find age-appropriate coaching on people that understand the overarching goal of the program. So instead of, you come in, you drop your kid off, and the coach teach them whatever they want to teach, we have an age-appropriate skill progression from the time they come in through the time they leave, which will make them the best possible players. So just looking through this, Sean Hanna, who you can see there at the bottom, will serve as our coaching director. He'll just conduct monthly meetings there, establish a forum where all of our coaches can share some ideas and share some stories and try to become the best coaches that they possibly can be. So Coach Hanna will be in there, managing that meeting, providing some insight based on his experience and facilitating discussion to make our coaches the best, therefore make the experience of our children the best. So again, Coach Hanna spent 13 years as a head coach at the Division I level at Sacred Heart University. Before that, he went to Cornell, where he was team captain, and then played some professional hockey, East Coast Hockey League, American Hockey League. And one thing we're really excited about, beyond those accolades and that experience, Coach Hanna is what we believe to be the best coach at any level here in Connecticut. He's an unbelievable role model, has an unbelievable way with the kids, and is a tremendous teacher of the game. So we've kind of taken this Scandinavian concept, if you will, to put our premier coach at the base to set the foundation for long-term athlete development. At the squirt level, Coach Phil Wright and Coach Mike Henrici, 2 guys did a tremendous job for us this year. They're back again in the same capacity, which we're really looking forward to. Again, 2 really good guys, 2 guys that understand how to work with players in that age group and really understand the process of long-term athlete development. As I mentioned a couple slides ago, Coach Henrici, who came to us last year after graduating from SUNY Cortland, playing 4 years at the Division III level at Cortland and at Manhattanville, came to us as a coach last year. He was a Maritolo Award winner, having gone through Yale youth hockey throughout his youth hockey career, and he's going to be working as our puck skills coach throughout our program, and also, in addition to those 2 responsibilities, working with some of our higher aptitude players at the Pee Wee and Bantam levels. Our Squirt B pod We're going to carefully select the highest quality coaches. We're currently performing our due diligence on that. We may go into the summer. We're in no real rush. The importance there is just to make sure that we get the right candidates to lead our kids in 2015, 16, and beyond. The same goes for the U12, U14, and U19 girls. Coach Sather, Coach Piasecki will be involved once again. But again, we'll finalize the details and finalize the coaches. We're going to get out and try to find some really good ones to add to the really good ones that we already have. At the Pee Wee AA level, Coach Bolaño, as I mentioned, him and Coach Novador came over this year. They're going to head up our midget program and coach our Pee Wee AA and Bantam AA teams. Coach Bolaño comes to us having spent last year coaching Tier 1 U18 hockey. And then prior to that, he spent 3 seasons at Wesleyan, NCAA Division III in the NESCAC as an assistant coach there. He's also coached in the USHL with the Lincoln Stars, coached at South Kent Prep School, and also the Philadelphia Revolution in the old Eastern Junior Hockey League, which has since split and become the United States Premier Hockey League, and also the EHL, the Eastern Hockey League. In addition to his work as a coach, Coach Bolaño also serves as a scout in the United States Hockey League, the USHL, which is the only Tier 1 junior hockey league in the United States, and he works in that league with the Bloomington Thunder. Brian Moriarty and Scott Toolings are 2 guys at the Pee Wee A and Pee Wee A1 level that have served last year as assistant coaches. Coach Moriarty was at the Pee Wee A level, and Coach Toolings was with Mike Henrici there at the Squirt A1 level. Again, 2 guys that really fit our model, understand kids, really passionate about coaching, have a lot to offer, great coaches, really interested in being a part of this long-term athlete development process. Josh Barbado returns at the Pee Wee B level, did a tremendous job for us in his first season. I know for myself personally, just watching some of the kids that came to a skate a couple weeks ago, the progress that they made this year under Josh's tutelage was really something that was exciting to check out. Coach Novador is new to our program as well, as we've mentioned his name a few times. I believe Coach Novador to be the guy who was the premier coach at the Tier 1 level in the state of Connecticut. He led his team to national finals a couple years ago at the U16 level. He also is involved with Loomis Chafee, where he's helped coach and recruit that team for a few years, bringing them to prominence, along with head coach J.R. Savisa, bringing them to prominence in the prep school ranks, which is really exciting. And again, Coach Novador, he's got a lot of experience at the Tier 1 level, at the prep school level, and he's worked with a lot of high-end players. He's a great guy, and he really knows how to coach. So we're really excited about him coming over. And much like Coach Bolaño, he also serves as a scout in the United States Hockey League, and he works with the Muskegon Lumberjacks in that league. Ryan Dohan, who did a tremendous job with our kind of premier signature team this past year, which would be our Pee Wee A team, won the Silver Stick Regional and advanced to that tournament in Michigan, and really led the team in a transition year. Did a nice job for us. We really think he's going to thrive at the Bantam level, and we're really looking forward to having him back next year. Same goes for Eric Brahman, who coached at the Pee Wee A1 level last year. I think he'll do very well at the Bantam level. That A1B team, it'll just be determined based on the competency of the player pool, and we'll get a bit more into that later. And before he came here, Coach Brahman spent a couple years coaching high school hockey, won a state championship with Daniel Hand as a coach, and also SEC, their league regular season and a playoff title. So a lot of good stuff there from Coach Brahman, and again, we're real excited to have him back in the Bantam ranks. And just looking at the midgets, we'll talk about those, in greater detail later on, but Coach Novador, Coach Bolaño, and Coach Brett Dickinson is going to be involved there as well. So a lot of stuff we're real excited about. I think it's a great roster of coaches. I'm really excited to get those monthly meetings going with Coach Hannah and let everybody share their experience and really get communicating. And I think it's going to be an awesome experience. Obviously, some of the stuff we're doing here with our program and some of these terms, it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of new stuff. So I just wanted to plug this slide in here so everybody can kind of understand the transition, understand, where we were, where we're going, and it just hopefully makes a lot more sense. So again, and I'll talk about this later, the whole tier system is kind of unfortunate. It's a little bit screwed up in the sense I really wish we did away with it and just played open and we could just schedule our teams against opponents that would be good competition. But again, looking at our previous system, squirt through Bantam at the A to B level, and you see that squirt B1 team in italics. That's obviously wasn't really part of our process before, but as you'll see when we get into the squirt structure and curriculum, we're just making basically 4 teams out of 3. So you look at what's in the gray, that was kind of our previous system. We had squirt, Pee-wee, Bantam, A1, and B, and that's kind of how we went. And we talked about earlier, servicing those 3 types of players. So historically, as we get into this Pee-wee level, we'd be unable to service our players at the higher end of that spectrum. So that's why we've created a step-by-step seamless approach, and we'll implement our Pee-wee AA and Bantam AA teams in 2015-16 and progress into 2016-17, kind of the end of this youth hockey spectrum with a Bantam AAA team, at the highest point. And then we're going to add, which we'll talk about later, a U16 full season team as well. So again, just explaining how this all works and what the rationale is behind it. It's people. There's some confusion as to why these teams aren't Tier 1 teams; they're Tier 2 teams. We think it's very important to delay the process of having to travel all over creation and spend an exorbitant amount of dollars. We want to delay that process as long as we can. We want to, not price people out and not really tap them financially. So we think that there's enough competition here locally that we can be competitive and supplement that with some outside competition without spending a fortune and without driving all over creation. And that's the reason that we've structured it in the way that we have. So again, it's something that I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be tremendous for our program as we move through. But this visual hopefully just allows you to see, in gray is what we had before, and now we're just going a 2-year process, adding a couple things on top, but nothing here in the middle changes. It's still going to be a heavy focus. And again, as I talked about, the 3 players we're looking to service is our recreational player, our player at the highest level, but perhaps most importantly is our player in the middle, to make sure that they're getting the resources that if they so desire, they can work to reach that higher spectrum. So again, a lot of good stuff and something that I'm real excited about, and I hope that this slide here, is able to further explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. Our tryout process, 2015-16, the objective is to place each player on the most appropriate team for their development and success this year and beyond. It's going to be objective, transparent process. Please trust the process and realize that all decisions will be made in the best interest of the player. With our policy to place non-parent stipend-based head coaches on the teams and not select assistant coaches until after the tryouts, we think we've eliminated the potential for bias selections. One thing that's really important for us is kind of taking the politics out of it and making sure that player that should be on the team is on the team, and so on and so forth. One thing that's worth noting on any team at any time was bubble selections. The last couple players at the bottom of the top team or the second team or whatever, and then the top couple players on the team below. Those players, you're oftentimes splitting hairs, and there's a lot of subjectivity that goes into the decision-making process. It's not a perfect process. It's not one that we always get right. But it's important that we let people know that if we're making a mistake, it's a mistake made without bad intentions. Everything is transparent and clear, and we're doing our best, and hopefully we get it right. Again, players are selected by the coaches at their level with their team, and I just oversee that process just to make sure everything's on the up and up, and that nothing is kind of going awry. So that's kind of my role. Just looking at the tryout decision criteria, at the mite and squirt level, it's a heavy focus on their skills: skating, puck handling, passing, shooting, and then coachability, focus, and discipline are 3 very important characteristics. At the mite level, we'll split our travel in our house and our April tryout, and then when we get to the fall, we split our mite travel A and B. At the squirt level, we're going to place players in the A and B pod, and then when we get back in the fall, we'll sort those teams out, and I'll explain that in greater detail later. Final teams will be determined at the start of the season to account for improvements in competence and physical growth over the summer and early fall. I always kind of joke about how stupid these April tryouts are, especially for these younger kids who might grow. 10% of their life happens between the end of this season and the start of next season. So we hope that we've kind of mitigated some of that and incentivized some players to work hard in all their sports over the summer and come back eager to challenge for a spot. At the Pee Wee, Bantam, U12, U14, and U19 levels, hockey IQ is first and foremost. The skills, which are the same ones as outlined above, and then obviously at the Bantam level with some checking, some body contact stuff, body checking stuff will be a component, and then coachability and character. So very important stuff, and that's what we think, that's what we're looking for. Tryout decisions are final. For more information on that process, go to the website. But you know, I guess this will be my official plea. Obviously, it's a difficult process. It's one that we spend a lot of time in. We're trying to get right. Everybody, there's a lot of emotion around tryout time, and I think it's just important that people, what I would ask is those emails that we've gotten in years past, sometimes threatening, oftentimes vitriolic, if you could maybe write those out and then delete them before sending them, I think that would be best for all involved. Again, we're trying to do the best that we can for the kids. We try to make this as fair and transparent as we can. We know it's not a perfect process. We know we don't always get it right, but it's never for lack of trying. So again, if you can realize that there's a human being on the other end of that email and think about what you say, I think that would go a long way for everyone. Looking at our MITE structure and curriculum for the upcoming season, much like the last 2 years, as I talked about there on the last slide, MITE Travel and MITE House will be separated during the April tryout, and then we'll have our MITE White, MITE Blue Travel, which will be 2 competitively balanced teams in the early fall, and then Coach Hanna will place the players in the MITE A, MITE B team based on merit. All games and practices utilize the blue 3-ounce puck, and that's what's required by USA Hockey under the ADM model program, which again we've applied for. And games will be in accordance with USA Hockey specifications, not CHC exceptions and exemptions. And what I mean by that is every year the CHC applies for basically a waiver to play X amount of full ice games. So a couple years ago it was 10, this year it was 8. I'm hearing it's going down to 6. Obviously USA Hockey doesn't believe in full ice MITE hockey, which is why they've created the structure that they have. But too often, one of the big differences between Yale Youth Hockey and I think a lot of other organizations is Yale Youth Hockey believes that our consumer is the child. We're here to make sure that we're providing a service to give them the best tools. And a lot of programs think the consumer is the parent who's paying the bill and sometimes and oftentimes making these decisions. But again, it's in the best interest of the players to play on a smaller surface. And that's what we're going to do. And you can look at there's a couple links there at the bottom. The USA Hockey 8 and under analytics with NHL technology. Check that out. And then there's a little more humorous one where adults are playing on a pond, which is made to simulate what it would be like for a mite playing in a full ice sheet. That's what it looks like to the adults in the pond with the nets. So it's some pretty comical stuff, and it provides some good insight as to what the mite really sees and why we're getting away from that. Weekly practices, all practices will be run by Sean Hanna. Mite Travel 8 and under, we'll have 3 practices together, 2 midweek, 1 on Saturday. The Saturday practice is more of a game focus than the ones in the midweek. And they'll be grouped by attitude and aptitude in their station-based practices and in their teams. All Mite House players practice together twice a week, again, grouped by attitude and aptitude. Looking at the structure of the games, Mite House, it's 3-on-3 cross ice with our small nets. No goalie to start the season, progressing to 3-on-3 cross ice with intermediate nets, which we're excited to purchase. We'll plug some goalies in there if that's acceptable under USA Hockey standards. And at the Mite Travel level, we start in September and October with 3-on-3 cross ice, as we have done in years past, progressing into 4v4 with the intermediate nets. We're going to play 1 game per weekend in Mite Travel throughout the season in accordance with USA Hockey's practice to game ratio. And travel games will be played no more than 4 skaters and a goalie on a surface no larger than half ice. So one thing that's become very frustrating to me as I've watched this Mite thing play out over the last few years is programs that look to circumvent this cross ice initiative with a bunch of bizarre setups, maybe 5-on-5 with 2 sets of dividers pushed in 5 feet from the boards, 5-on-5 3/4 ice, with those divider boards across, using offsides and using the lines, a whole bunch of nonsense that's set out to circumvent the rules. And again, you're for us, our consumer is our child. It's not the parent, and we're going to do what we believe is in the best interest of the child. And then just looking there at the bottom, just reinforcing some stuff I talked about with players to participate in other sports. The fall and spring is very important, and fostering continuity and community. If we can have potluck breakfast, I think that Saturday practice day is probably a great day for that, and just do some different things to get people, cultivating relationships and building friendships with other parents and making it the most enjoyable experience they can for them. At the squirt level, again, the April tryout determines the 44 to 48 players that are applicable for squirt travel. Players are grouped into a pod with flexibility to move them up or down based on attitude and aptitude. Again, very important that we get these teams right, because we're going to shrink the rosters. So it's a minimum of 10 skaters, a maximum of 12, and we'll formally determine the teams in October. As you look here at the weekly breakdown of practices, skill sessions, training, and games, prior to the midweek deadline, we'll play 3 practices. We're going to have Hoxall interjected all the time, and you can read more on Hoxall there in the bottom left-hand corner, which is a game that we created, and there's an article from USAHockey.com, and it was in the New England Hockey Journal on that. You can check that out. That provides the kids with some unstructured time. I guess it's lightly structured. There are some regulations in the game, but it gives them time to create, to make plays, to challenge themselves without any real repercussions, and that's something that's really exciting. And again, Roger, when he came, he talked about bringing the pond back, and that's something that we think we've done with Hoxall. 3 practices a week, all 48 of our players. There'll be station-based practices, and then 1 half-ice game, 4-on-4 for the first few weeks, progressing into 5-on-5 full ice prior to October team placement. Kids can go to Sean Hanna's power skating sessions, but one thing, that comes with the one caveat of, if you're practicing 3 times a week, just be smart when getting back out there for an additional session. We don't want burnout. We don't want kids, doing too much. That 16 to 18 home slot probably should be in the bottom segment after the mid-October tryout deadline, but those 16 to 18 home slots are for the season in its entirety. And again, continuing after, the situation stays the same. We're just going to we'll pick those final teams and move into our CHC league play. Going to play the same amount of games that they otherwise would under USA Hockey specifications. And something, again, a lot of things here that we think are bringing some sanity back to youth hockey and really working to develop the skills and competency of our players, something we're real excited about. So Sean Hanna, he is a squirt-aged player this year, so he's going to also be involved with Coach Wright, Coach Henrici, our other coaches in the practices. And then, there's a lot of stuff, again, that we're really looking forward to, a lot of crossover with our coaches, working levels up and down, and we think that's going to be a home run for our kids. The girls program, as with teams in the co-ed division, chosen out of the April tryout, which is on our website, we intend to roster 3 to 4 teams. So we're adding the U19 team at the U14 level. This past year we had major and minor. We'll see what our numbers are, and we're not opposed to doing that again. So U12, U14 tryouts, 2 tryout sessions and 1 callback day. Same goes for the U19s, with the only exception being we haven't plugged in the callback day yet. We'll see what our numbers are, and if we have to add that day, we most certainly will. And then, we may roster major and minor teams, like I said. We're going to play again in the CGHL, which we've had a lot of success with, and has been a really good league to us. And we'll have the ability to consider the CHC Tier 2 if our player competency is at that level. And speaking with John Sather, who heads up the girls program, he talked about his belief and the philosophy that we should move to all female teams at the U12 level. That being said, we have some females in the higher end of that spectrum that want to be challenged and continue to play with the boys. And for them, they can petition the Yale Youth Hockey Board and play both on the co-ed team or with the boys and with the girls as well. I know a couple years ago we had a couple girls on the Bantam Tier 2 team, and they obviously did very well there, and that was a bit of an exception to how things had been done. So again, if you're at that level and you want to play there, by all means, send an email to the board and we'll certainly consider it. 2 shared practices per week at the U12, U14 level, and access to power skating with Sean Hanna, 16 to 18 home ice slots. And again, this year we were able to provide the girls with more than that. And we'll do what we can. We try to under-promise and over-deliver. So 3 times on the ice for practice and getting their games in there on the weekend. And then the U19 team, this is a little bit of a pilot project for us. It's going to be a hybrid split-season team. What we mean by that is you have a weekly full ice practice throughout the year, power skating with Sean Hanna, and then that practice, once high school starts, maybe that'll be on Sunday or something, and we'll tweak that and figure it out. Before the high school season starts, 6 to 8 home ice slots. So add a tournament in there, and it'll be a nice, 16, 20 game season in September, October, early November before the girls move on with their high school. And we're working out some particulars with that, and we'll work out the cost and get that to you as soon as possible. Pee Wee structure curriculum. Again, looking to roster 4 teams chosen out of the April tryout. As you've indicated, the Pee Wee AA tryout is prior to the other tryouts, so all 3 of them will consist of true tryout days and 1 callback session. Again, Yale youth hockey returners that look for the opportunity to try out for that AA team, feel free to send an email to Charlie Andrew, and we'll plug that in. Looking at the roster sizes, our goal is to have no more than 3 lines worth of players. And then at the B level, our most important thing is not to cut players out of youth hockey. So that roster may be a little bigger, but again, we'll just make sure that we're all set on that front. Just looking at the weekly breakdown of practices, skill sessions, off-ice training, and games. Pee Wee AA, Pee Wee A, and Pee Wee A1 all have the same offerings as far as practice goes. They're a little bit different in the sense that the shared practice for Pee Wee A and Pee Wee A1 is together, and the shared practice for Pee Wee AA is with Bantam AA, but each team has a station-based practice together. Each team has a shared practice. Each team has Hoxel over at H3, periodic video coaching sessions, access to power skating with Sean Hanna. Again, just like the Squirts, we want to make sure that we're not overdoing it, so use that wisely. When the Pee Wee AA will have a couple Tier 1 AAA tournaments throughout the season. And again, just looking at the schedules, we're forced to utilize this tier system. So the Pee Wee AA team, Pee Wee AA will play in Tier 2 for their competitive CHC tournament schedule. And then they'll supplement that with Tier 1 tournaments and games against outside Tier 1 competition. The Pee Wee A team will be rostered in Tier 3, and then they'll play their games, their extra games in Tier 2 as well. And again, people have talked to me, especially in the 2004 birth year, where traditionally they would be in the Tier 2 level. Again, I'd say, don't get too caught up in the tiers. And why I say that is, if you're on the Pee Wee A team, you're going to play your Tier 3 schedule, which will be good, and the kids will make plays and create and do all that. And then we have to supplement it with the dozen or 15 Tier 2 games that'll challenge them from a competitive standpoint. And I think it'll be really good on all fronts. So what we're really talking about is 10 games, give or take. And again, one thing to be weary of, and we'll talk about this later, is the old bait and switch, where a lot of programs, and again, I wish these tiers went away, especially in the Tier 2 through 4, and we could just play open and schedule teams that we know we'd be competitive with. And the reason I say that is a lot of teams use the tiers for marketing purposes. So they're coming out now and saying, all right, we're Tier 2, and then when the season starts, they realize they don't have the ability to play at the Tier 2 level. They drop down to Tier 3, and everybody's stuck. You cannot leave a program. You commit to the program. You don't commit to the tier. So you can't leave the program in the middle of the season if they drop to Tier 3, even though they promised you Tier 2. So that's something to look into. And then at the PWV level, they have a shared practice, a station-based practice, and a power skating session. So they get on the ice 3 times a week. And then periodic video coaching sessions will be available to them as well if they so choose to utilize that software. So, again, a lot of good stuff at the Pee Wee level, stuff that we're real excited about. Our program is about development. Our program is about practice. And as you can clearly see, we're offering more practice ice time than any program in this. At the Bantam level, Bantam is very, very similar to Pee Wee. Again, you have the AA 2002 team playing at the Tier 2 level. That's limited to players born in 2002. Their tryout happens beforehand, and then all the other tryouts are 2 tryout session days at Bantam A, Bantam A1 or B, whatever we determine that to be, with a callback day. And again, if we can roster a Bantam B, Bantam C team, a fourth team. If the numbers allow, we'll do that, and all those other teams consist of players born in 2001, 2002. A weekly breakdown of practice, skill session, training, and games at the Bantam AA level as well as the Bantam A level. It's 4 practices a week. So we have shared practice with Bantam A, shared practice with Pee Wee AA, Hoxel, and then a bi-weekly 20-40-20. What that is of those 2 teams that share in that middle 40, one team gets 20 full ice on the front end, one team gets 20 on the back end. And then, in the week that we don't have the 20-40-20, they can do power skating with Sean Hanna, or they can take a day off. Again, video coaching will be available. We'll implement some strength and conditioning component as we will with all our teams, but a little more structured at the Bantam level. Access to some nutritional information. And then they'll play CHC Tier 2 as an underage team, which I'm really excited about. I think giving up a lot of size to their opponents, their size and speed will take away time and space from our kids, and they'll be forced to get out of their comfort zone and really be challenged. And then we'll play the remaining schedule against independent 2002 teams and play in our Tier 1 tournaments. Bantam A, same exact setup as Bantam AA. Difference being that their schedule will be Tier 3, and then we'll play the remaining schedule against Tier 2, assuming that we're applicable and we have that competency. And then our Bantam A1 or B team, which will determine that as we go. 1 station-based practice, 1 shared practice with Pee Wee A, 1 shared practice with Pee Wee B. Again, those are splits, go down one end, so 3 practices a week, and they can go to Sean Hanna's power skating sessions for 4 skates a week. And a CHC Tier 4 schedule. We're going to roster as Tier 4, and again, we'll see where we're at as a team. That may be a predominantly Tier 3 schedule. We'll see what comes of it. So again, that's our offerings for next year and stuff that we're really excited about. Looking ahead into our program transformation, looking ahead to 2016-17, but looking into our transformation that was prior to last year, we looked at the youth hockey landscape throughout the country, and we looked at Minnesota's community-based model, where people stay within their community and don't really chase anything, as well as a Tier 1 model, which much of the country utilizes and has a lot of success in the Midwest and the West. One of our problems here in the Northeast is we have an abundance of for-profit Tier 1 programs, which are full-time businesses, and that dilutes the player pool, and that leads to a misconception of the quality of development in these programs. So we think that this model is largely ineffective. In our state, for example, we have 2 teams that are recognized by the CHC as Tier 1 programs, and then we got about 5 rogue spin-offs. And the reality is, at all the levels, our state certainly does not have the ability, by the depth of the player pool, to support 5 to 7 Tier 1 teams. It just doesn't exist. It's just not there. And I would love to see this Tier 1 thing start at Bantam, and then all the players stay within their community until Bantam, and then we have 2 Tier 1 programs, and all of the best players in our program and everyone else's program go to those teams in Bantam and get some elite coaching that's age appropriate and get some really good instruction and some really good resources. But unfortunately, that's not how it goes down. Youth hockey's become big business, and I think that the players in New England have suffered as a result. Like I said, we haven't observed any evidence to support this Northeastern brand of Tier 1 hockey below Bantam. That being said, enhanced competition at the Bantam level is something that we do believe in, but we think with a discipline and structured progression of skating, skill development, and game experience, like we've outlined in our curriculum, it does a lot of good. So we kind of have made a new player model or a new model for how the structure of our program works. And at the core of that is the ADM, the skill-based focus, and all the long-term athlete development principles. So when you combine those 2 things, I think it does a lot of good. And one thing, to go one step further, across the board is I don't mean to pick on the Tier 1. The Tier 1 has, in theory, the best coaching of any level. But that's by virtue of there being so many teams at the Tier 1 level, and that's where the top coaches want to go. That's where the money is, and that's where the players on the higher end of the spectrum are. So I'm not suggesting that the players are not good there. What I'm suggesting is that we can do a much better job widening that pool of players and making sure all of the players on those teams are elite players as opposed to just a couple or a handful. So again, and we do that by everybody implementing the ADM and having a focus on skill development and learn long-term athlete development. So as we talked about many times in this presentation, we got 2003, 2002 AA teams, and as I showed in the transition slide, we're going to implement a Bantam 2002 AAA Tier 1 team in 2016-17, and a minor midget Tier 1 full season team as well. And as you'll kind of see, what we believe is that U18 full season doesn't have a ton of value. We believe that at the U16 level, all the players at the high end of the spectrum leave after U16, where they go to the United States Hockey League to play some junior hockey. They go up north and play some major junior hockey in Canada, or in our region, where prep school is so prevalent, a lot of those players go and play prep school. So again, we look at our program we'd like to develop through U16 and then help the players utilize the network that we have and the resources that we have within our program to help the players get to junior hockey, get to prep school hockey, and wherever they so choose to go, and then hopefully use that as a vehicle to reach their long-term goals. Why Yale Youth Hockey? Again, as we've really hammered home here, a structured research-based curriculum in accordance with the research and the science and the tens of millions of dollars that have been invested in USA Hockey's American Development Model. As you can tell, considerably more ice time than any other program. The coaching is obviously top-notch. Less travel. It's very important to us to manage time, manage cost. People don't have to drive all over creation and chase something that is really not real. They can stay at home and do that and go through the process, and then when the time comes to shrink that pyramid, by all means go and reach your full potential. And why I get involved in all this youth hockey stuff, and I know Charlie, his motivation is that this is a broken system, and people are manipulated and people are lied to, and youth hockey is big business. So what you can expect from us is no empty promises, no hidden costs, ethical and honest offerings, and the truth. We're going to tell you the truth. We're not going to lie to you. We're not going to manipulate you. If your player is a player that would benefit from Yale Youth Hockey, we're happy to have him or her. And if not, there's no skin off our back. We wish you the very best in anywhere you go. This slide here is probably not a Yale Youth Hockey specific slide. Just some good stuff for parents who are going through this process, which on a lot of levels is a confusing process and a very difficult one to navigate. So some articles there, which are some really good ones. 10 hockey skills for the real world. I got that off of LinkedIn. Just talks about some of the things that you learn as a hockey player that help you in business and why people should hire hockey players. I always say the practices are where we teach the game of hockey, and then the games are where we teach the game of life. So there's a lot that can be learned from this great game. It's the greatest game in the world for a reason, and there's a lot of things that'll help the players long after they're done playing in the real world. Parent sanity and parent behavior has certainly been a hot-button issue across our state and really across our country and our game as a whole. People need to relax. And John Butchergross has a great article here for 13 simple rules for hockey parents everywhere, which is a good one. And then third one is another Butchergross article, which I got from Mike Boyle's website. Mike Boyle is arguably the premier strength and conditioning coach in the United States. He's one of the best, does a tremendous job. And it's an article about producing elite players. Elite U.S. players starts at the bottom, with a lot of good information from Kenny Roush, who's a USA ADM manager out of Colorado and a New England guy. So that's all good stuff. Check those out. And then another link to check out is Roger Grillo came in the fall and presented his ADM, did his ADM presentation to a lot of our members. Check that out. That's online. And then this next one here, just some stuff to talk about for parents. Avoiding the pitfalls, propaganda, and empty promises. One thing that's very, very important is age-appropriate coaching. You can have an NHL coach, but they don't understand the child psychology and the sports science of each level and understand how to coach kid at the squirt level. Doesn't matter that the acumen that they have, the knowledge base they have, if they can't instill that at an age-appropriate time in a squirt player, it's very dangerous and can oftentimes really mess a kid up. So check that out. Again, the tier system I've kind of railed on a little bit. Again, I wish it was all open, and I would caution parents to do their due diligence, find out programs who have pulled off the old bait and switch before, with rostering is tier 2, dropping down to tier 3. You want to be wary of that. Another thing I've seen advertised is full ice practices at the younger levels. This is a complete waste of time. Again, it's a marketing ploy. When you believe that the consumer is the adult and not the child. Full ice practice has no value at the younger levels in particular. You have 10, 12 squirts on the ice. Playing full ice, you're completely wasting your time. I've had the good fortune to coach hockey at a lot of levels, coach college hockey, junior hockey. Got a lot of friends, in that industry. And across the board, so many teams at the highest levels are small area games, small-sided games, working in tight areas. This game, to be an elite player in this game, you got to be able to process information, play in tight areas. So there's certain things where the full ice is good at the older levels, but a lot of stuff is accomplished even at the highest levels. On the smaller surface, and again, it's something that parents should look into, do their homework, and realize that at the squirt level, full ice practice is really a waste of time and money. Misrepresentation of network. So a lot of people throw around names, drop names, talk about people they know, so on and so forth. Make sure, do your fact finding, do a fact check. Make sure that the people actually do know the people that they claim to know, and even more than that, make sure that they're respected by them. A lot of people, hockey has, we talk about 6 degrees of separation. You know everybody in the world through 6 people. Hockey is probably 2 degrees of separation. But again, make sure that person has a good reputation and do your due diligence and make sure you get that right. Another thing to look out for is these money-driven prospect leagues. Again, another marketing ploy. Prospect leagues and squirts and peewees, they don't exist. There's no such thing. There's no scouts down there scouting kids at the squirt and peewee level. Again, it's a lot of these ideas have just been repackaged and tried over again, and it seems to just get worse and worse every year. What we need to do is focus on the child. Child needs to be the consumer. It needs to be a focus on skill development, focus on long-term athlete development, and not so much, putting a fancy logo on your jacket in a league. Again, this is youth hockey, and youth sports is big business now. People make a full-time living on it, which is what it is. But again, be wary of these things. Make sure that you're investigating. Make sure everything's on the up and up. Another one, misleading college commitment information. There's some programs in the western part of the United States that bring these kids in from squirt, and they coach them through their program all the way from squirt through midget, and they get college commitments or they get drafted and what have you, and that's unbelievable. That's awesome stuff. That's what it's all about, is developing players. I've seen some programs around here, and we're going to be offering this U16, U18 split season, which is predominantly prep school kids, and it's about exposure and helping them get to college. And we hope all those kids are able to use our program as a vehicle to get there, and we wish them the best, and we'll help them through that process. That being said, it's very deceptive. It's a deceptive practice to put college commitments from split season teams, players that never practiced or played in your program or developed through it, to attach that and try to connect, make a correlation between that and what's happening in the youth hockey from a player development process. Again, make sure you do your fact finding. Make sure you see where those players come from, as we don't want people to be manipulated or deceived. We want everything to be on the up and up. This is obviously a very difficult process for parents to navigate. There's so many confusing things, so many different avenues, and so much information. So we want to make sure people are educating themselves in the process and not making bad decisions. And taking that one step further, just misinformation on the process to prep junior college hockey. Whether you're a Yale youth hockey family or not, feel free to shoot me an email. Pick up the phone, give me a call. I'd be happy to walk people through this process. I see a lot of propaganda, a lot of nonsense on some flyers and whatnot, with people that promising things or throwing out buzzwords. These buzzwords, elite, exposure, all this stuff that suck people in and attract them. But the reality is, everybody's pushing an agenda. And for me, this is a labor of love for me. This is about changing the culture. This is about taking a broken system and trying to repair it. So for me, anybody that needs my help, feel free to reach out to me. and I'd be happy to help you. Our last slide here is our summer camp, which will have some details released on our website on April 1st. We're going to have a couple levels, Bantam, Pee Wee, Bantam, Tier 1, Tier 2 level. That's open. All these levels are Yale youth hockey kids are welcome, and kids from outside across our state. Anybody can come to our camp, take advantage of these resources, and have a great experience, whether they're Connecticut, or even if in a surrounding state, if they want to come down for the week and take advantage. We'll get that information out on the website. We did this camp last year. We had some really good guys. Scotty McDougal from Sacred Heart, John Riley from the Philadelphia Flyers came in, Danny Muse, associate head coach at Yale, Bill Kangas, head coach at Williams College, came down. So we had one guest instructor every day, and this year we're gonna have 3 guest instructors every day. So you look at all those guys, NHL level, Division I, Division III college, some prestigious prep schools in our area. We got all bases covered, and then obviously Steve and John doing some stuff at the USHL level, and so we got all of our bases covered. And again, this is a development camp. This isn't an exposure camp. All right, you're not coming in here to get your squirt or pee-wee tracked and evaluated by any of these guys. They're coming in here with a wide knowledge base as some of the premier coaches in the country coming in here and running a hockey camp to help us develop hockey players. So again, all these guys are good guys. I got a good friendship with a lot of them, and I'm really looking forward to them coming down and working with our players. So thanks for your time. Thanks for checking out this thing. God bless you if you sat through an hour and 6 minutes of it. And just, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank everybody who was part of our process in 2014, 2015, as we started this transformation. So many coaches, so many parents, so many volunteers, so many people getting involved in so many facets, our parent managers, our administrators, and obviously, the most important people who's our kids. So thanks to everybody. Thanks for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But we're looking forward to a tremendous season in 2015, 2016.